The race to replace John Tory has already begun in earnest, even though the mayor hasn't officially resigned. Hello, I'm Adrienne Batra. With me are Toronto Sun columnist Brian Lilley and the VP of at Strategy Corp, Fraser MacDonald, and has some expertise in and around municipal government. Brian, there are so many names that come to mind on the right, on the left, on the center, whatever color of the political rainbow you want to choose, that are already lining up to get into a mayor's race in earnest, even though John Tory hasn't officially handed in his resignation papers. So who are those people?
There's a lot of people from folks at Queen's Park to folks on Parliament Hill to folks at City Hall to people from the outside. I was back and forth with so many people on the weekend, talking directly to potential candidates, talking to their backers, talking to organizers. One federal Liberal said to me at one point, we had discussed earlier in the day on Saturday, oh, here's some names out of Ottawa that are looking at running. Then he sent me another name, then another name, and then a text saying, it might be easier to tell you who's not running than who's considering it. So, you've got Federal Housing Minister Ahmed Hussein. You've got Etobicoke Lakeshore Liberal MP James Maloney. You've got Don Valley East Liberal MP, former Queen's Park MPP, Michael Couteau. They're all thinking about it. Stan Cho in the Ford cabinet. He's an Ontario MPP for Willowdale. Kinga Surma, who is the Ontario cabinet minister in charge of infrastructure, MPP for Etobicoke Centre, I believe. You've got Brad Bradford on City Council, Josh Matlow on City Council. Some people have told me Kristen Wong-Tam, who used to be on council and is now at Queen's Park, will come back. Others are floating Michael Ford, the Premier's nephew, as someone that will run. There's a very long list. Mike Layton, son of the late Jack Layton, could come out of retirement. He just left City Council, might come back and try a run for it. Then, of course, there's this question of, is John Tory actually going to retire? We don't know.
So, Fraser, it is an eye-wateringly long list, and we probably didn't even get to all of them, but it's instructive to have these conversations because the city is facing some very weighty, significant, heavy, serious issues. And now you have this sort of other element of these strong mayor powers looming out there. There's certainly no desire to go back to the days of how shall we say, a David Miller type mayor. But the progressives, the left has a lot of momentum, and they have a lot, they're very vocal and they're very active. So what's your take on who's out there and who has a shot at winning?
Well, I think one of the names Brian mentioned that I've heard a lot of interest and excitement about is Brad Bradford. He's a city councilor who's really leaned in on the housing file, and I think that is still the number one issue in this city is the unaffordability of housing, which leads to downstream effects like homelessness and other things we don't like to see. But he's a guy that's a real up and comer, and I think has the chops to put together a really serious run here. The other name we didn't mention, but I think falls into a similar camp is Anna Bailau, who was a previous city councilor, now working in the development industry, but has also really leaned in on the housing issue and had a lot of respect across partisan lines. Hearing a lot about her kicking the tires as well. So on the what I would say it's less so than left right is pro housing or NIMBY would be the two camps, and on the pro housing side, those are the two big names. And given the importance of that issue, I think it can and should be a defining issue of the election.
So I'm just going to add a couple of comments with respect to, say, Brad Bradford. Yes, he's reelected handily in his ward, no question. But this is the guy, Brian, voted to defund the police, and he recently just voted to put those bike lanes on Yonge Street. So again, he's really leaning in a certain direction. And with respect to Anna Bailau, she was put in charge of the housing file at the City of Toronto and made little to no progress. So there are negatives to all of them. There's certainly positives to some of them. Couple more names I'm just going to throw out at you. former TTC Commissioner Josh Cole, who left quite some time ago to go into the private sector and has found some success there. His name is still being bandied about. And another one is former Toronto City Chief Police Mark Saunders. So there are those names that are. The notion is it's such a tight time frame for a potential by-election, 60 days. You need someone with some gravitas. You need someone with name recognition. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And so, Saunders, if crime is the issue, Saunders becomes a very interesting candidate. Yeah. I know he's been approached, he's being pushed, he's thinking about it. The same with Josh Cole. And everyone's trying to get organizers. And what's interesting is someone like Anna Bailão, who in my view, is on the left side of the Liberal Party, but does have some cross-partisan support. She gets support from some who you would identify as NDP, some who you'd identify as Conservatives. Municipal politics isn't as cut and dry as the party system. So Anna Bailão has the support of someone like Nick Kuvalis, who was a strategist and pollster for Doug Ford. Brad Bradford has the support of Corey Tenayke, who, along with Nick Kuvalis, helped run Doug Ford's last winning election campaign. So you've got these different things. It's either going to be someone who has the union backing, the NDP backing on the progressive side, or someone who brings together Liberals and Conservatives to stop them. And who that's going to be at this point, we don't know. It's a lot like politics where you're from, Adrienne. Back in Saskatchewan, all the parties that aren't the NDP merged into one to stop the NDP hordes. And that's what they've got to try and figure out. So it's not going to be a right-wing candidate or a centrist candidate. It'll be NDP type or non-NDP type. Anna Bailão, my concern with her is, does she lean too much towards the NDP? She voted no on defunding the police. Brad Bradford's trying to position himself as a centrist and got some Ford support, but he voted yes on defund the police. That will be a central issue. I agree with Fraser. Housing's huge, but crime, how filthy the streets are, the fact that basic services don't work, and we're spending more than ever.
And not to mention the significant tax increases we're about to face in the city as well. Fraser, I'm going to give you the last word. Peel back the curtain for us a little bit. What are the conversations that these folks are having with either strategists, their families? What is, and not the least of which is, it's going to take a lot of money to run for mayor. So what's going on in the back rooms?
Well, I think the other question you just hit on there is, can I raise the money? And can I do it in a short period of time? But I think the other one is just, in light of the incursions into people's personal lives, like, do I really want to do this? Do I want to be the punching bag? And do I want to set myself up for what is an extremely difficult job? I mean, looking at all the problems the city has and the learning curve a new person's going to have, you've got to really, really want to do it. So God bless whoever puts their name forward, and hope for the best, whichever person ends up taking it.
It's going to be fascinating either way, and we will have it all covered for you. Log on to Facebook and Twitter and let us know what you think, and go to thetorontosun.com to read more from Brian on what's happening at City Hall and coverage you will not find anywhere else.